The first thing you noticed about the Deathworlder girl was her silence. Not the awkward kind that filled pauses or hung between unsure sentences. This was weaponized, quiet, deliberate, and sharp. Era Varen sat in the far corner of the xenobiology lecture hall, her back straight, her hands folded, her eyes locked forward. She never spoke. Never reacted. It unnerved everyone. "Does she even understand Galcom?" whispered a feather-crested Avilas student to his companion. "She's from Earth. They grunt more than they talk." Laughter rippled through the group, short and cruel. Era didn't blink. She didn't flinch when they mimicked her gait, or coughed exaggeratedly when she passed in the corridor. She just kept walking, head down, pace steady. Her silence wasn't submission. It was restraint. Jax Varen, on the other hand, wasn't a mystery. He didn't hide. He didn't need to. He moved through the academy like a shadow cast in daylight, seen but never challenged. His presence did all the talking. Tall, broad-shouldered, lean muscle honed from survival rather than aesthetics. His uniform sleeves were rolled tight, his boots scuffed and practical. He said less than Era but made people talk more. Rumors clung to him. Earth War survivor. Jungle ghost. Apex-born? No one knew the truth. No one dared ask. The Galactic Alliance Academy was no stranger to exotic students, silica-based minds, telepaths, shapeshifters, even plasma-bodied sentients. But humans were different. Not rare. Resented. Feared not for their weapons, but for what they were without them. They didn't belong. Professor Ka's voice buzzed through the lecture hall, his three mouths working in unnerving sync. "Now, the Deathworld-class planets produce species with aggressive survival traits. Let's examine the hormonal response patterns." A snort interrupted him. "Why don't you ask your Earth girl to demonstrate?" said Threx, a long-limbed Zitari with a smirk that curved unnaturally high on his face. "I hear they bite." The room chuckled. A few eyes darted to Era. She didn't move. Professor Ka turned his middle eye toward Threx. "Zitari sarcasm is not appreciated in this classroom. One more remark and I'll flag your behavioral record." Threx leaned back, unbothered. "Just saying, some beasts shouldn't be in cages." Jax exhaled through his nose and stood. The sound of his chair scraping the floor felt louder than the lecture. Heads turned. So did Threx's smirk, into something more cautious. Jax didn't speak. He simply walked toward the display board, tapped the plasma pen on the desk, and drew a sharp red line across the neural map Ka had projected. "Incorrect model," he said, voice low and smooth. "You're mapping a Terran predator's aggression spike. Era's not a predator. She's a shield bearer. Different hormone cascade." Professor Ka tilted his heads. "That's accurate." Jax handed the pen back. "Then correct it." He returned to his seat without another word. Era didn't smile, didn't glance at her brother. But her fingers relaxed, just slightly. The class ended in tight silence. Later that evening, on the Academy's upper terrace, stars shimmered beyond the protective dome. Gaia Station orbited a lush, uncolonized moon, its sky a perpetual canvas of deep violet streaked with golden rings. The view didn't calm Jax. He leaned against the rail, jaw tense, eyes scanning the troop movement exercises far below in the drill yards. Era joined him, silent as always. "You all right?" he asked without turning. She nodded. "They'll keep testing you." "I know." Jax's grip tightened on the railing. "You don't have to stay quiet. You can shut them up in seconds." She looked up at the stars. "But then I'd become what they expect." His throat tightened. She was stronger than he ever gave her credit for. Behind them, alarms flickered, quick bursts, not drills. A ripple in the station's power grid. Then a voice over the comm system, calm but clipped. "Attention, Security Protocol Omega-2 engaged. All cadets return to dormitories. This is not a drill." Jax straightened. That code wasn't used lightly. Below, troop patterns broke formation. Commanders barked orders. Defense turrets along the station's rim began humming to life. Era's hand slid into her brother's. Not out of fear. Out of readiness. Jax tapped his wrist calm. Nothing. Jammed. Era. Get to dorm 6. Lock it down. I'm not. Now. She didn't argue. She ran. Jax turned back to the yard. One of the dropships hadn't launched from Gaia. It had arrived. No Alliance insignia. No clearance beacon. His eyes narrowed. Za'Tari sigils. A cold calm slid over him. So this was how it started. A whisper moved through the air, almost a memory. His mother's voice in his mind. If you hear silence just before the storm, that's your moment, Jax. That's when you strike. He stepped back from the edge. The academy wasn't a classroom anymore. It was a battlefield. And Jax Varen had been silent long enough. The invasion began without a sound. No screaming klaxons. No tremors through the deck. Just a sudden flicker in the gravity stabilizers, a hiccup in the artificial light, and then a stillness that settled over the academy like fog before a lightning strike. In the main corridor, cadets hesitated mid-stride, eyes drawn to the windows lining the hall. Through the reinforced glass, dark specks drifted toward Gaia Station, too slow for cargo shuttles, too fast for drills. Dozens. Then hundreds. Era stood alone at the edge of the atrium. Her gaze, sharp and unblinking, locked on the shape's breaching atmosphere. Her classmates hadn't noticed yet. Then a voice shattered the stillness. Za'Tari ships! Someone shouted. Panic ignited. A stampede of students sprinted for the exit bays. Boots slammed against the floor. Doors jammed. Lights stuttered again. Security panels blinked red across every checkpoint. The entire academy was sealing itself shut. Era didn't run. Instead, she turned calmly and began walking against the flood of students. Down the corridor, the Za'Tari landed. 6 of them moved with terrifying synchronization, tall, armored in bioforged exosuits, black skin pulsing beneath red plating. Their weapons weren't standard issue. These were not soldiers on patrol. These were executioners. They stormed the atrium, weapons raised, their lead commander's voice booming through an internal speaker. On your knees. Hands behind your heads. Cooperate and live. Most dropped instantly. Some froze. Others backed away in trembling disbelief. Era remained standing. The lead Za'Tari cocked his head. The girl from Earth. Step forward. She did. Another Za'Tari approached her, teeth bared in a mocking grin. So this is the Deathworlder. Thought you'd be taller. She said nothing. You're braver than the rest, he mused. But still meet. The plasma rifle in his hand hummed as he raised it to her face. He never fired. Something exploded through the glass wall behind them. A blur of motion and noise, a heavy mass crashing into the Za'Tari's side, slamming him hard against the reinforced floor. Metal cracked. Bones followed. Jax Varen stood above the shattered body, silent. He twisted the rifle from the stunned invader's grip and tossed it aside like scrap. You talk too much, Jax muttered. The remaining 5 Za'Tari moved instantly, shifting into flanking formation, but Jax was already in motion. He closed the distance on the nearest one, dropped low under a wide plasma swing, and drove his elbow upward into the soft seam of the soldier's armor, just beneath the armpit. A loud crunch. The Za'Tari folded. Cover him! Shouted one of the others, but by the time his aim steadied, Jax had vanished behind a pillar. Era lunged for the dropped rifle, slid across the tile, and fired. The bolt caught one of the invaders square in the shoulder, sending him sprawling. The fire alarm kicked in, sprinklers hissing to life. Steam clouded the room. Lights blinked furiously. Disorientation favored Jax. 2 more shots. One too slow. One too wild. Jax reappeared, driving his knee into the back of another's leg, then flipped him onto his face, tearing the helmet free. He slammed the edge of a broken console into the exposed temple. The Za'Tari twitched once, then stilled. The commander snarled. Fall back! Regroup with Omega Team. Contain the humans! Jax ducked a plasma burst and rolled to Era's side. You good? She nodded. You came fast. I never left. They moved as one now, brother and sister, silent synchronization. Jax swept the room for exits. We need to get off this floor. Head for the central lift, then down. Service tunnels. Era handed him a second rifle. Elevators offline. We'll have to jump 2 decks. Standard drop for Deathworlders. The corridor groaned as another impact rocked the station. Above them, the sound of boots echoed, heavier than any cadet's step. Reinforcements. Zitari were pouring in. They ran. Down narrow halls, past bodies of guards, some stunned, some worse. The academy was under siege, but not destroyed. Not yet. This was a message, not extermination. A demonstration. They reached the shaft. The lift doors were jammed halfway open. Jax pried them wide, peered into the shadowy shaft below. 3 floors down, he said. Era didn't hesitate. She swung over the edge and dropped. Jax followed. The impact jarred his knees, but he rolled, stood, and swept the area. They'd landed in the maintenance level, dim, unfinished, unguarded. Pipes hissed around them, and the air smelled like metal and ozone. From a nearby wall panel, Jax pried open a sealed locker and retrieved an emergency kit. Inside, calm disruptors, a cutting torch, and a compact stun field generator. Not weapons, but tools he could turn into one. A crackle echoed behind them, then a voice across the station-wide comm system. It was him. Vorton KRYSS. People of the Alliance. The voice said, smooth, practiced, venomous. You have let Deathworld filth infest your sacred halls. You call them students. I call them infection. We are here to remind you that peace has a cost. And Deathworlders are the debt. Jax grit his teeth. Vorton continued. Surrender the humans. Or the blood of your children will stain your ceilings. The message ended. Era looked at Jax. They want us to be the example. Let's give them something to remember, then. He activated the disruptor, tucked it into his belt, and led her deeper into the tunnels. The hunt had begun. And this time, the Deathworlders were the ones tracking. The maintenance tunnels beneath the academy were a labyrinth of darkness and heat. Pipes hissed with vapor, the metal walls vibrating faintly under the distant thud of combat boots and the low groan of hull stress. Jax moved first, every step calculated. Era followed close behind, rifle steady, eyes scanning every junction. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. At Junction 6, Jax halted, fingers raised. A pulse of boots echoed through the duct above them, sharp, heavy, too coordinated for security. Zitari. They waited, motionless, as the squad passed. Era broke the silence once the echo faded. They're everywhere. They're spreading outward. Trying to flush us toward the dorm sectors, Jax said quietly. They want containment. Not slaughter. Yet. She raised an eyebrow. Why wait? He tapped the disruptor clip to his belt. Because they want the device. Era's eyes narrowed. The wormhole generator? Jax nodded. Beta prototype. Alliance Tech said it's months from being stable, but I heard whispers. They brought it on-site for calibration. If Vorton gets it, he gets to move armies across systems before we can respond. Exactly. A hiss. Behind them, a low whine, like energy warming. Jax spun. Too late. A concussive blast lit the tunnel. Era was thrown into a wall, breath knocked out. Jax hit the ground hard, rolled, rifle aimed. A Zitari scout emerged from a side hatch, firing wildly. Jax ducked, pulled his sidearm, and fired a single shot through the alien's visor. The body crumpled. He rushed to Era. You hit? She waved him off, gasping. Just winded. Jax helped her up. They're not hunting. They're hurting us. Fast. He checked the tunnel map etched faintly on the wall. Storage Corridor 4 connects to the generators under deck. If we move now, we beat them there. They ran. Corridor 4 was tighter, lined with heat exchangers that hissed dangerously close. Jax's uniform clung to his skin, drenched in sweat, but his focus didn't waver. Ahead, they reached a blast door. Locked. Era dropped to one knee and popped the access panel. Wires tangled inside like a synthetic spider's web. Her fingers worked quickly. Jax kept watch. She muttered, "They rerouted the power loop. Probably from the generator core." Jax passed her the torch. "Bypass it." The door hissed open. They slipped through just as another patrol's footsteps echoed from the main tunnel. Inside, the space was massive, half-lit, stretching the length of a starship hangar. The generator core sat at the center like a frozen sun, pulsing with unstable blue light. Cables webbed out from its base into consoles and terminals. A few technicians lay unconscious, alive but stunned. Era's voice dropped. "We're the first ones here." Jax moved toward the closest console. "Not for long." He scanned the display. The core was in calibration mode, vulnerable. Any wrong input could destabilize the energy field and rupture the device. But if Jax could reroute the charge, he could turn the generator into an EMP blast powerful enough to knock out the Zetaris systems across the station. Era peered over his shoulder. "Can you do it?" He didn't answer immediately. His fingers moved fast, overriding security subroutines. "Maybe. I remember bits from a side militia training. But I'll need time." She nodded, took position at the door. "Buy it." Jax's brow furrowed as he worked. Data cascaded across the screen: voltage curves, energy modulation ratios, containment algorithms. It was a puzzle built by a dozen engineers and rushed to deployment. He had minutes to solve it. Era crouched near the entrance, listening. Her grip tightened on the rifle. Then came the sound they dreaded. Clanking. Heavy, deliberate. Zetari Elite. "Jax," she whispered. "2 more minutes." The door shuddered. A Zetari blade sliced through the seam, glowing red-hot. Era raised her rifle and fired through the gap. The blade paused, then pulled back. Jax's fingers flew. 1 minute. Another pulse. This one closer. A grenade rolled into the room. Era didn't hesitate. She grabbed it, yanked the override pin, and hurled it back. It detonated midair. Screams followed. The door burst open. 3 armored soldiers poured in. Era fired in bursts, aiming for joints. The first dropped, stunned. The second ducked behind a terminal. The third rushed her. Jax turned, raised his own sidearm, and shot the attacker in the knee, then the neck. The body crumpled before reaching her. "I'm in!" he shouted. "EMP in 30 seconds. We'll have to run. This thing's gonna fry every system in the sector." Era threw a smoke capsule. "Then we go now." They sprinted down the emergency corridor just as the generator began to hum louder, charging, growing volatile. Behind them, the room filled with white-blue light. Then came silence. A soundless wave rippled through the station. Lights dimmed. Panels shattered. Weapons clicked dead. Even the artificial gravity stuttered for a breath. The Zetari lost everything. Jax and Era, already shielded behind Bulkhead 6, stood over the charred remnants of the hatch. Era glanced at him. "You just blacked out an army." He exhaled. "Not the whole army. Just their eyes and ears." She handed him a fresh magazine. "Then we finish it." He looked back at the ruined generator room. No turning back now. And in that dark, crippled station, 2 humans, trained not in classrooms, but in survival, prepared to end what the enemy had started. The lights across the station flickered, dimmed, then returned in patches, enough for movement, not enough for coordination. The Zetari strike teams, once synchronized and overwhelming, now stumbled through half-lit corridors with fried comms and dead visors. The EMP had done its job. But it didn't stop the war. Jax led Era through a service duct into the lower maintenance hub, emerging just outside the command annex. His hands were wrapped in strips of scorched uniform cloth to grip the heated metal. Every breath stung with ozone and recycled air laced with fuel vapor. He pulled himself out of the shaft, and crouched low behind a stacked coil of fusion lines. 2 guards at the annex door, he whispered. Era slid beside him, rifle ready. They're jittery. Good. They should be. He nodded once. She stepped out, rifle raised. Fired twice. One Za'Tari dropped instantly. The second stumbled back, swinging his weapon up. Jax was already on him. He lunged from cover, closed the distance in 3 strides, and drove his knee into the Za'Tari's chest plate. The armor cracked. Jax spun, disarmed him mid-fall, then jabbed the butt of the stolen rifle into the exposed throat joint. The body collapsed without a word. Era exhaled. Still quiet. Let's keep it that way, Jax said. They slipped into the annex, clearing room by room, 1 flash grenade, 1 chokehold, 1 silent takedown at a time. Jax didn't waste motion. Every strike served a purpose. Every breath was measured. The command center loomed ahead, heavily reinforced, but unmanned. The real leadership was somewhere deeper, closer to the wormhole core they'd failed to steal. Vorton was still out there. Era accessed the central terminal. Partial powers restored. I can open bulkhead sectors manually. Good. Open junctions 7 through 10. I want the patrols bottlenecked. She nodded, fingers flying across the console. Done. Jax checked his gear, 2 plasma mags, 1 energy blade, and a compact gravity knife. His knuckles were bruised, chest sore, legs tight. But his eyes were sharper than ever. Era glanced at him. You don't have to keep charging into this alone. He looked at her. I'm not. You're here. She blinked. Then gave the faintest nod. Suddenly, the main screen came alive. Static resolved into Vorton Krys's face. The Za'Tari warlord stood in the Academy's former command bridge, now a throne of shattered panels and burning cables. His eyes burned with malice, his voice coiled with venom. Impressive, human. You've disrupted my plans, crippled my squads. But you're still just one. Jax stepped into the camera's view. One's enough. Vorton chuckled. You believe that? You've been trained to. Earth makes monsters out of children and sends them to die in silence. But you'll be nothing more than another body in the rubble. Funny, Jax said calmly. That's what the last warlord said. The transmission cut. Era turned to him. He's baiting us. He thinks that's all it takes. They moved quickly through collapsed corridors, past the wounded, past downed droids and burned out wall panels. Several alien students, bleeding, frightened, watched them pass. Some whispered his name. One tried to salute. Jax didn't slow. Near the dorm sector, Era froze. Wait. Movement. A thudding rhythm. Heavy boots. March formation. A Za'Tari exo-unit, 8 soldiers in full power armor. Shields glowing, weapons hot. Their suits had insulated cores, unaffected by the EMP. They moved as one wall of death. Jax dragged Era into an alcove. We can't fight that head-on. She glanced at the ceiling. There's a service hatch. We go over. Too slow. He eyed the fuel conduit behind them. Pressurized. He gripped her shoulder. Get to the upper duct. On my signal, cut the pipe. She hesitated. That'll blow the hole. Do it. Now. Jax stepped into the hallway, hands up. The lead exo-unit aimed. You are surrounded. Surrender. I know. He sprinted forward. The suits adjusted, but too late. Jax dropped low, skidded under the first plasma burst, and rolled to the wall. His knife slid into a coolant valve. Superheated gas blasted out, clouding sensors. From above, Era cut the fuel line. The corridor erupted in a chain reaction. Flames swallowed the exo-units in seconds. Their suits sparked, failed, and fell. Jax dove into cover as debris flew. Era jumped down beside him, coughing. Are you? I'm good, he rasped, hand over a scorched shoulder. They're not. They pushed forward, the last stretch now clear. Ahead, the command bridge doors. 2 final guards stood waiting. Jax walked toward them, slow and steady. They raised weapons. He didn't stop. Era fired once. One guard fell. The other hesitated, too long. Jax was on him. 2 strikes. One arm broken. One leg crushed. He dropped without a sound. They entered the command bridge. Vorton stood alone at the center, blade drawn, a cruel smile on his face. No armor. No backup? Jax asked. I wanted to look you in the eyes when I finished your myth. You should have brought the armor, Jax replied. The final fight had begun. The command bridge stank of heat and scorched metal. Sparks cascaded from exposed wiring, casting flickers across Vorton Krys's face. He stood like a monument of war, tall, muscled, his crimson blade pulsing in one hand. Behind him, shattered screens flickered with dying feeds. The station's systems were barely breathing. Jax stepped onto the bridge, boots scraping the deck with calm precision. His shoulder ached from the exo-unit blast, his pulse steady but rising. Across from him, Vorton smiled like a predator who had cornered his kill. No allies left, the warlord said, pacing slowly. No comms. No cavalry. Just you, and that girl. Era raised her rifle behind Jax. We've been enough. Vorton chuckled low. You think this is victory? You crippled my soldiers. Not my cause. You've exposed yourselves. The Alliance saw what one human did when pushed. They'll never trust your kind again. Jax kept his eyes locked. Then I've already won. He dropped his rifle, letting it clatter to the floor. His voice was even. We end this. No tech. No tricks. Just you and me. Vorton tilted his head. You want to fight me with your bare hands? Jax said nothing. Vorton laughed, genuine and unhinged. Earth trains fools. Then he charged. Jax sidestepped just as the blade swept toward him, the hum of its edge slicing air inches from his chest. He drove his forearm into Vorton's side, staggering him, then followed with a quick jab to the throat. The warlord recovered fast, too fast, and slammed a fist into Jax's ribs. Pain lit Jax's torso. He absorbed it, twisted under the follow-up strike, and caught Vorton's wrist. Using the warlord's own momentum, he hurled him over his shoulder. The floor boomed as the Za'Tari crashed down, but the blade skittered loose only a meter away. Era moved forward. No! Jax barked. He's mine! Vorton pushed himself to his feet, face twisted with rage. You're strong but slow. I'm not here to be fast. The warlord roared and lunged again. Jax met him head-on, catching the blow, twisting their bodies into a grapple. Fists hammered bone. Elbows cracked against armor seams. Vorton kneed him in the thigh, trying to break his stance, but Jax didn't budge. He stepped in, too close for the blade to matter, hooked his leg behind Vorton's knee, and brought him down. This time, Jax didn't let go. He pinned the arm. Slammed his elbow into the shoulder joint once, twice, until the Za'Tari roared in pain. The blade dropped from numb fingers. Jax stood over him, blood trickling down his lip. Breathing hard. It's over. But Vorton grinned through his broken teeth. Then kill me. Show them what your kind really is. Jax didn't move. I said do it. The warlord spat. They'll fear you either way. So give them a reason. Jax crouched, grabbed the blade, and tossed it aside. No. Vorton blinked. I'm not your message, Jax said. I'm the correction. Footsteps echoed behind them. Academy cadets, alien, human, hybrid, entered the bridge slowly, weapons raised. Era had called them the moment she secured the lower deck. They looked from Jax to Vorton and back again. He's alive, Jax said without turning. Put him on trial. Let the Alliance see the monster speak for himself. Vorton snarled, but said nothing. There was nothing left to say. 2 cadets secured him with magnetic cuffs. As he was dragged away, Vorton gave Jax one final look. You'll always be feared. Jax finally spoke. Good. The aftermath moved quickly. Alliance medships arrived within hours. News feeds exploded with footage of the siege. The Academy's security logs, partially recovered, confirmed everything: Vorton's treason, the Zitari infiltration, the near theft of the wormhole generator. But what caught the galaxy's attention wasn't the politics. It was the human who stopped it. Not with fleets. Not with weapons of mass destruction. With silence. With restraint. 3 days later, Era sat under a canopy in the recovery garden, legs crossed, datapad in her lap. The station was still being repaired, but the air was calmer. Less suspicion. More nods in the halls. Jax approached quietly. She glanced up. They finally released the footage, she said. I saw. They called you a hero. He sat beside her. Let them. It'll fade. Era leaned back, watching the artificial sunlight shimmer through the garden glass. Do you think they'll ever stop fearing us? She asked. Jax didn't answer immediately. He pulled a folded slip of paper from his pocket, printed news, not digital. A quote circled in red. In the end, it was not the Deathworlder's violence that saved us, but his refusal to use it. He handed it to her. One step at a time. Era smiled, small and real. Still, she said, teasing. Next time, maybe let me punch one of them. Jax looked at her, finally grinning. Deal. And with that, the Deathworlders rose, not as monsters, but as something far more dangerous to their enemies. Hope.